who has one of the thickest Irish accents that I've ever heard in my life, she said, "Oh, we're going to be fine." And I said, "Yeah, we'll be fine." So we get in. Immediately, we realise that we're not fine. We're very not fine. We have no idea what we're doing. And she was going, left, left, left. And I said, so I started turning left. She went, no, the other left. And I went, do you mean right? And she said, yeah, right. So then we're going left, then we're going right. And then she's like, stop. And then she's slamming on the brakes. And you see the car like, but thankfully we didn't kill anyone.
Hey everybody, welcome back to our Two Tired Guys production Zoom studios for a new Talking About Cars episode where everybody has a car story. I'm Randy Cardoon, along with the one, the only, you know, me, welcome, Hot Rod Bob Beck. And in this episode, we welcome a friend of the show in a return appearance. Yes, a touch of British sensibilities as Stephanie Holloway from I Drive a Classic joins us in just a mere couple of moments. And she was on the show sometime back as we get a chance to talk to the host behind I Drive a Classic Car. And since we've last had her on the show, a few things have changed. By the way, this car behind us, this was one of the cars she drove in her show. It's a 1959 Vauxhall. Wait a minute. It's a Vauxhall Velux.
Velux.
Yeah, it's kind of like, it's not the fancy one. The fancy one, I think, is the Cresta.
I don't know. That looks pretty fancy to me.
Yeah, but apparently the fancy one has like two-color paint on it and all that other fun stuff. And the one thing I like about it right here.
Yes. Quarter windows.
Where have we seen that before?
Buick and Oldsmobiles.
Buick and Oldsmobiles, and in certainly 1957.
Well, and Vauxhall was a GM company,
right? At the time, yeah, because Vauxhall had just joined them, and they started selling them under Pontiac, which is funny because Pontiac never sold. Well, I don't know if they sold these in the U.S. I do know they sold them in Canada. I think they sold them in Canada.
Yeah, the Vauxhall that they sold here was pretty close to what the Opel was in Germany. And I think that's where the tie-ins came.
Right. That's where the tie-ins came. In fact, as long as we're talking about that, there we go.
Oh, there we go.
There we go.
That was the one. That was the one that was very reminiscent of the Opel of the time.
Yeah, but they also said that this was a really close replica of a 55 Chevy. Many people in England think this is kind of like the 55 Chevy.
Say what?
I know. I think if anything, it looks more like a Mercury or a Ford or something like that. So, but that's what they said. Yeah. So what do I know?
I don't know.
What do I know?
We debated that a number of times. I don't know here.
Yeah, I just was going to say that. So what the heck? All right, let's get to it. Steph's waiting, and you're going to have some fun with this because we'll talk about cars and also something kind of really important for her, kind of like we all have health issues from time to time. She had to overcome something really big as well. So let's get to it. Direct from England, we talked to the host behind the I Drive a Classic Car, and let's do the snap. Here she is, Stephanie Holloway in 3, 2, 1. And there she is, ladies and gentlemen, back joining us again with more cool cars from Great Britain. Stephanie Holloway of I Drive a Classic joining us on the Talking About Cars podcast with Hot Rod Bob Beck. I'm Randy Cardoon. And again, Steph, thanks for coming back.
And thank you for inviting me.
It has been, we were talking about this before, and it was like, it's been 3 years. When we first started doing Zoom, the reason we started doing Zoom was when we were at the radio station in Los Angeles. It was like we didn't need to. We figured we'd come up with a different way. But then, of course, COVID showed up. People were not as easy to get. And Zoom was this brand new thing that people started really getting heavy into. And it was like, well, let's give it a shot. And Steph was one of the first people that we used on the program. Let's, I think, talk about your kids. I say kids, and of course, meaning your cars. I think you've either added a few, subtracted a few. There have been some movement there, hasn't there?
There has, yes. So I did a bit of almost just kind of looked at everything that I had, and I've been trying to restore my Morris Minor now for, gosh, took it off the road in 2016, 2015, 2016. And every year I said, right, gonna get it done this year, gonna get it done this year. But here's the thing, when COVID happened, it meant that I didn't have to spend fuel money on commuting. It meant that my social life stopped. And I suddenly found that I actually had the money to get the car done. And I couldn't believe it. I just thought, yes, I'm going to get it done. So it went from a bare shell, and really there was nothing left on it, just the steering wheel and the actual tires. That was it, nothing else. We'd stripped all the glass out, everything. There wasn't even a wiring loom left in it. And I gave it to this amazing man to restore. He's called Andy Sheraton, and he's based in Lincolnshire in England. And he's a really old school mechanic. He's been doing it for decades, and he has this really great workshop. And I'd seen some of the cars that he'd done. He's done things that have raced at Goodwood, and he's done some really old great Fords. He's very much a Ford man himself. He's had Fords since he started driving. And I saw another Morris Minor that he'd done, and I thought, you're doing some really great work. So I said, can you do it? And he said, I can. And I don't think he was expecting a bare shell that looked awful when he got there, but he was very brave about it, and he was very stoic, and he took all the parts, and he said, oh, have you put them all neatly in boxes? And I'm a bit of a scatterbrain, so of course, no, I hadn't. It was just in bags and boxes and cups and just everything everywhere. And I just handed it to him and said, there you go. And he said, wow, what am I going to do with this? And he turned it into the most amazing car. I'd had a vision in my head. I wanted it to be Ford Midnight Blues, that really old school colour that you see on a lot of 60s and 70s Fords. I think it looks really mean, and it can look quite racerish. And I thought, I want that colour. So I had that, and then I had some duotone seats. So if you've ever seen some of those early cars with the cream and blue seats, I had those. I got given them by somebody who sadly passed away a good few years ago, but he gave them to me, and he said, put them into your car when it's done. And I think he probably expected to see it before he departed, but obviously he didn't. And the car just looks incredible. So I've taken it round the track at Goodwood. We've taken it to the Isle of Man. And
Wow.
for anybody listening or watching that has heard about the Isle of Man but has never been, if you get the opportunity, you should go. It's one of the most beautiful places I've ever been. It's so safe. I think it's the 4th safest place in the world. And the weirdest thing is because every car has to be checked coming off the island or coming onto the island. Car theft isn't something that happens. So when people park their cars, they leave the keys in the ignition, and nobody locks their front door. And I was quite frightened when I had the car finished, and I was very scared about taking it anywhere. And I was chatting to the gentlemen that run the Isle of Man Motor Museum, which is one of the best car museums I've ever been to. And they said, why are you worried? And I said, oh, I'm worried it's going to be stolen. And they said, Steph, everybody leaves their keys in the ignition. I just thought, what? But the weirdest thing about the Isle of Man, going completely off topic, is that in the 70s, some wallabies, so they look like kangaroos, but they're smaller if you've never seen one before, escaped from the zoo, and they assumed that they would die, and they didn't, and they've bred in the wild. So on the Isle of Man, there are wild wallabies. I just bought my Morris Marina when I saw you guys last, and it's had a bit of a mixed bag over the last few years. So the engine blew up, and with the help of my subscribers, we got that rebuilt. And then the bodywork was really bad when I bought the car, and it just got worse and worse. And then I was like, right, okay, let's get it sorted. So we did rust to roadworthy, and then we displayed it at the end of last year at the NEC Classic Car Show. I've got my Triumph, which I've bought, I think, since seeing you, and It's so temperamental. It just breaks down all the time. But I've still got it, and I don't know why. I'm a bit of a masochist.
Which
And then
Triumph
apart
is it?
a Triumph 1300 front wheel drive. So if you think
Oh,
about what the Dolomite looks like, if you know what a
yeah.
Dolomite is, yeah, it precedes the Dolomite. So they had that technology for the 1300, the 1500. So it looks like that body shape wise, but it's got the 1300 engine in.
Oh,
It's
okay.
the
When I think of Triumph, I just think of the sports cars that came over here.
Right.
Yeah, so there are a few 1300s over there, but they're a rare car anyway. They didn't make many of them because I don't think they really made any money on them, and they were very luxury. And I've got, and I bet you've never heard of one before, a Proton Saga.
Yep.
Yeah,
I saw the
brilliant.
pictures on your feed. Yeah, I just went, wow, I hadn't heard of that before you posted it.
Yeah, so if you remember the early Mitsubishi Lancers,
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
okay, so the very brief potted history on this is that Malaysia didn't have an automotive industry, and they said, right, we want an automotive industry as any prosperous country would. And so it was the 1980s, and they spoke to a few different brands, and then they bought the rights to the old Mitsubishi Lancer essentially, and they rebadged it and they called it the Proton Saga Iswara. But over here it's just called the Proton Saga. And they took it and it became a massive hit. Not
Hmm.
just in Malaysia, but in other countries as well. So they sold them in, I think, Thailand, they sold them in the UK. They won awards in the 1980s/1990s for being the fastest growing automotive brand
Wow.
in the UK.
Yeah, so I always loved British cars. I got weaned on them when I was 5 years old. My cousin put me in the front seat. It's only a front seat of a TR2,
Oh
and
wow.
that set the pace. I had four TR3s, two MGBs, one GT, one Roadster, two XK120 Jags,
Yeah.
two Morrises, and I'm probably missing something else. But yeah, I was definitely a British car nut, and the dealerships are gone. And
Mm.
when I stopped racing my Austin Healey, I couldn't at that point in time. This was
Oh
30
yeah,
years ago.
think about it. Since the last time we've seen each other, England lost basically all of its automotive industry. I mean, Bentley went away, Vauxhall, although technically it's
They're
kind of
still
there.
around.
It's
It's
still
part of
around, but
Stellantis now.
but now it's Stellantis
I
instead.
mean, you've got Aston Martin, they're still doing really great
Right.
stuff.
That's true.
And what a lot of people don't realize is that a lot of the small components, they actually come from makers in the West Midlands or within England. And so they source little bits and pieces from all over. So there is still a British car industry, but I just think it's a lot smaller. And then you've got some really great people like Twisted Automotive in the north of England, and they take Defenders and Land Rovers and 4x4s and do incredible modification work. And so in many ways, no, they're not creating the initial product, but they are taking it to the next level. And we've got some other people like this London Electric that are electrifying classics. It's not something I would maybe do for mine because I do some real heavy mileage. So doing short trips on, a Nissan Leaf battery, for example, wouldn't be suitable for me. But for some classic car owners, it is suitable and it is what they want. And so we've got industries like that are popping up that maybe aren't necessarily creating the initial product, but they're doing interesting things instead.
Well, it's the cottage industry, but that is how the British car industry really began.
Mm,
Morris garages for MG. I mean, that was a small. Let's build the specialty car we like racing. Let's build a sports car that we can race with. Jaguar wasn't a major manufacturer in their
mm,
early startup, and neither was Triumph. Triumph Standard, but they grew. Unfortunately, you talked about the cars not meeting British standards for Malaysia, and Proton had to pull out. Same thing happened pretty much here. The
yeah.
Triumphs, the MGs, and so forth, they could no longer meet the U.S. standards for not only emissions but crash safety. They
Do you
weren't
get the
big enough.
do you get the new electric MGs over there?
No, we don't. We don't
No,
get
not
any
yet.
That's a
MGs.
shame.
No, no.
Yeah, we're not getting any MGs, no Triumphs. The only thing we do get from Britain, I believe, is the Jaguar at this point in time, and the Mini, but I don't think of
Mm.
that as British any longer because it's BMW.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I went to see the new concept mini in September time, and I do think that the design team have been really savvy in what they've done. So what they've done is they've gone back to the drawing board, gone back to that simplicity of the heritage, and the new dash is very reminiscent of what was in those early 59 minis. So we'll give them that, and I like the fact that they've gone back to that tactile key turn as well, which almost gives you that feel of like almost like an early pull start. So it's quite nice that they've done that, but you're right, it is a shame that the automotive industry is just such a shadow of its former self.
There. Well, when General Motors dropped Pontiac and such and left Buick,
Right.
the demographics for a Buick were people that were 70 plus years old.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a market that's thriving.
No.
Pontiac was a better had a better market in the U.S.,
Right.
but Buick had the market in China. So for some reason, they felt that was the way to go, and they went that way. And now there's a huge decline in U.S. Buick stores, and the dealerships are closing. There's almost no, if any, standalone Buick dealerships. They just don't have the business to support it.
You're right. Yeah, they'll
But
put them
Yeah.
in with Chevrolet. They'll put them in with a few others, but yeah,
Yeah.
Buick by itself, no.
The thing that really bugs me is that you see everybody's in an SUV now. It's very rare that you see somebody in something smaller, and it just feels like it's a race to be in the biggest car. So it's like, you go bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. But the problem is you then end up with people in these enormous vehicles that, our roads are a lot smaller than yours. You think back to the Roman times when our roads were made, and some of them haven't really got much wider. Then you've got single track roads that you can only just fit a bus down. But if you've got two SUVs that are coming at each other down a windy country road, they're stuck. And people can't drive them, and then they're trying to park them, and the spaces are too small. I just feel that, and then even worse is when you see just one person on their own traveling around in one of those things, and you think you could be driving something so much smaller. You don't need this enormous vehicle. It feels like just a complete waste.
What?
Yeah,
You're making us drive small vehicles?
Small
No,
vehicles.
we're
No.
thirsty. We need to get whatever we can get.
big.
Over there, you can get away with it. Here, you can't. And as well, you've got people trying to parallel park, and we've got very limited parking over here, very limited space. It doesn't lend itself in the same way that it does where you are to the bigger vehicles. There's just not enough room.
No, and I agree with that. I've always,
Mm.
contrary to now, you got to understand, I like small vehicles, as you can tell from what's
Mm.
behind me. I've always had small vehicles. I've tried a couple of large vehicles. I'm uncomfortable. I'm a little guy, and driving a big car, I get lost inside, and there's
Yeah,
just too much around me. Randy, on the other hand, he's got big stuff. He likes his big cars. He's a big guy, and but we have that choice, and
exactly.
that's
It's
the
all
thing
about
that's important
choice.
to me is having the choice. My daily driver is a small car. However, I've got a big 1956 Chevrolet station wagon I drive and a 1948 Plymouth that I drive. They're both the
Now
same
that's a
size.
car.
That is
That's a
cool.
car. I'll tell
I
you
mean,
something right
but
there.
the Plymouth is actually very small inside.
Yeah.
It just the fenders were big, but the
Mm.
car itself was small. And I used the 56 to tow a camper trailer, or you call them
I
caravans.
love that. Yeah, I love
So,
that.
we do that, but they're purpose built. As far as a daily driver, my daily driver gets almost 35 miles per gallon most of the time when I'm on the
Mm.
freeway. Uh, but that's just me. That's the way I've always been. I liked small cars.
So
But it's
there are interesting things going on. You get Citroen over there, don't you?
no,
You don't?
no,
No,
Citroen pulled out.
no,
Oh,
The
that is such a shame.
no.
Have you seen the Citroen Ami, the electric Ami? So the Citroen Ami is the most bonkers vehicle. So it's AMI, and it's this tiny little thing that looks like almost like a Tonka toy, and it looks so plasticky, and you get inside and it is really plasticky, and it has a top speed of I think about 30 miles per hour.
Oh,
It's
seriously, 30?
yeah, but it's for use around town, and in France you can drive it. It's what's called a sans permis vehicle, which essentially means you don't need a license. And what happens is that if you are a drink driver in France, you can qualify for a sans permis. And the idea is that you just don't, you can still get around, but you don't have the power there. But it also means if you're a child, I think of about 14 or 15, I think that's the age that they can start driving them. They can drive these as well. But
What
they're
could
a
possibly
super,
go wrong?
Yeah, I don't
I
know. It's
know.
basically a golf cart.
Yeah.
Yeah, it basically is. But it's so funny because we've got some really big hills around us. And I was talking to a chap who'd bought one. And I said, "Oh, how did you get on with it?" And he said it went back after a week because I couldn't get up the hill to my house. So they don't have much power. But for, if you're living in Paris or one of the French cities, or you're living in rural France and you don't need to travel that much, and a lot of people don't, then it just represents a really great way to get around.
Okay, so you, of course, have been doing a lot of cars recently and
Mm,
getting more and more involved with your reviews and driving around
mm,
your cars. After all, your show is called I Drive a Classic. One of them, and two words we rarely see in test drives,
mm.
blindfolded driving.
Yes.
Explain
So,
that if you would you?
of course, yeah. It was my Morris Minor, and I'd said all along, I said, right, when I get her restored, I'm going to do everything because I'm not going to be one of those boring people that restores a car and doesn't do anything. And they were doing a charity challenge where you had to drive round blindfolded, and you had a navigator next to you, and they understood you were in an arena essentially, and you had to drive your car with the navigator telling you where to go. Which, when we watched it, my friend Becca, who has one of the thickest Irish accents that I've ever heard in my life, she said, "Oh, we're going to be fine." And I said, "Yeah, we'll be fine." So we get in. Immediately, we realise that we're not fine. We're very not fine. We have no idea what we're doing. And she was going, "Left, left, left." And I said, so I started turning left. She went, "No, the other left." And I went, "Do you mean right?" And she said, "Yeah, right." So then we're going left, then we're going right, and then she's like, "Stop!" And then she's slamming on the brakes, and you see the car like but thankfully we didn't kill anyone, so we were okay, but we also didn't win. We did really badly. But there were two young guys that did theirs, and they did really, really well. They did it so quickly, and watching it was just brilliant because they must have had so much trust in each other because they were saying right, left, right, and going absolutely for it. But you had to reverse park into a space blindfolded. That's what caught us out. It was so difficult.
Wow. Well, I mean, you
Oh,
probably practiced a lot too, I would imagine, because after all, you just don't get into a car and go, no, you're other right, that kind of thing. It would be,
we had no practice whatsoever. You had to get in the car, no practice, and just go
Uh,
for it.
wow.
we've
So,
got a lot of
and
people here that seem to drive that way. It just,
we've got them here as well.
yeah.
And
Oh my gosh.
sometimes having full sight doesn't help. You can still hit something. I remember when I
Yeah.
had my 69 Pontiac and I hadn't driven it
Mm,
around. We had bought it. I'd gotten it on the road. They call it white track here in the States. And there's a good
right.
reason for that because it's wide. And I tried to pull it into one of those car wash places. And I thought,
Mm.
oh, I'd driven one 30 years ago. What could be different? And I pulled in and I clipped the
Oh
washing
no.
thing and yanked the thing right out. And I'm just suddenly looking around going, uh-oh,
Oops.
what am I going to do? And there was nobody there. And I tried to put it back in and it didn't
Mm.
work. I came back the next day to tell the guy and offer to pay for it. And he looked at me like I was a Martian, because he's like, nobody comes back and apologizes and offers to pay for this stuff. We have stuff like that happen all the time. So yeah,
Well,
sometimes
there was also a cement bench, I remember, that
cement bench.
you
Oh, that cement bench. Yeah.
that cement bench.
Well,
Yeah.
okay, but that was a little different because it was
Yeah.
dark.
Right.
It was dark. We had gone to a car
That
show.
wasn't your fault if it was
Yeah,
dark.
we had gone to a car show at a local community college, and I was driving my 64 Polara, and I decided, well, I'll just turn around on this grass. And I was turning it around, and all of a sudden the car stopped, and I was doing maybe 5 miles an hour, if that. I mean, I was just kind of going slowly, and the car just went boom, like I hit a wall. And I
No.
went, what the heck? And I literally felt my brain go dislodge from the back of my skull into the front, which was never fun. I don't advise to do that. And when I backed it up and realized it, what they had done is they had taken these concrete chairs and tables, and they were only yay high, so you never saw them. They weren't.
Did you get caught out by it?
By Bob every opportunity he can. Other than that, nobody said anything, because it was, when we get there, like 5:30 in the morning, so it was really dark.
Like that.
And
there was no damage to the bench.
The
bench said, "Yeah, you're not going to hurt."
No,
me.
the bench was fine. It did not, and I want to say it didn't damage the chrome bumper much, although it did push it in a little bit. So unless I did have to replace one extra kind of like a bumper guard, but other than that, it was like, wow. Who knew? So anytime anybody out there ever goes driving around on college campuses at 4:30 to 5:30 in the morning when it's dark, always stay away from doing it on lawns, because there could be just a small little kindergarten bench sitting there that is made of concrete. Thank you. And that is your message of the day.
He's the only one there, but he was able to find it on the first try.
Yeah, I'm attracted to things like that. I don't know why. It's just a happening thing. See, this is something you've never done before, is driving blindfolded. So that's always interesting.
You should have a go at it. It's quite funny.
Yeah,
Bob,
sure.
Bob, can I borrow your car?
Yeah. So, Steph, you've got a bunch of cards. What's the next one? What are you going to look for? What's going to be the next project?
Oh, well, I'm in two minds at the moment. I drove a Humber Scepter last year. Yeah, it was last year now, and I don't think you ever got Roots cars really over there. So that's what
we did get a few. We did get a few of them, the 4-door sedans, and we got Sunbeams in different variations until Chrysler bought them.
Right.
Chrysler right, yeah, of course.
They stopped bringing them in because, for whatever reason.
I remember a neighbor had a Hillman Minx, believe it or not, out here. So
yeah, they're nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My friend has got one of those. And he said it's left to me in his will, but hopefully hopefully he'll outlast the car. But I drove the Humber Scepter, and that was such a beautiful car. Loved that. So I'd love one of those. I think realistically I need to just stop and not buy anything else for a while. But there's always something, isn't there? And I'm also thinking about a standard 8 or a standard 10. So the 1950s ones, not the pre-war cars. I don't want anything pre-war yet. I think it's too much for me to take on, really. But yeah, I've got a little bit of an idea in mind, which is a bit of a fundraiser idea, but I'm not sure how I'm going to do it. But I thought, I'd quite like a standard 10 to do it in, because it ties in with the theme, and it's the Golden Jubilee for standard this year. So I thought, that'd be quite good. And then maybe do something with it afterwards, like gift it to the Classic Car Loan Project, which is a scheme over here where they loan classic cars to young people. So you retain the ownership, but you can lend it to a young person to get them into classic cars. It's quite a cool idea.
That is.
And I'm really supportive of it, and I think it's just such a great initiative. I mean, we all talk about everybody doing something to inspire the next generation. I mean, what could be better than giving the keys to somebody and saying, find the magic for yourself, and this is how you do it. So yeah, and they get a bit of support for it as well. So I think that'll probably be the next purchase, an 8 or a 10. But it's just trying to find one. It's so difficult to find one that's they're either really expensive and in really nice condition, or they look like they're 1 mile away from the scrapyard. There seems to be no in between at the moment, and I don't want something that is completely undrivable that I'm going to have to spend thousands of pounds on. I want something in between that maybe looks a little bit rat roddish or a little bit past its best, but it's still got life left in it. I think that's probably what I'm looking for.
Steph Holloway, I Drive a Classic, joining us here on the Talking About Cars podcast. And before you go, I wanted to touch base on something. I mean, we all live day to day, and we all have our own lives, and we all have things that are not car related. And we've seen in the car community here in the United States, car personalities having physical health issues, and I won't necessarily go into them. If you've been following them, you pretty much know who they are. In your situation, you in the last few years had a challenge as well. And I think after watching how you handled it on social media, I wanted to mention it here, because I think
Yeah, sure.
just the fact that how strong you were to deal with what you were
Thank
dealing
you.
with. Give me a little background on what happened and how you were able to handle it.
Yeah, so our health system is a little bit different to yours. So I'll give a little bit of background on that before I launch in and tell you. But essentially, we have something called the National Health Service, which is an incredible thing. And I don't think we are grateful enough for it. But it's essentially in the UK, you get free healthcare. And it doesn't matter if you work or you don't work. It doesn't matter if you've never had a job. Everybody is entitled to a basic level. But then if you want something a little bit out of the ordinary, you might have to wait for years. So diagnosis for things like autism and stuff at the moment is ranging from anywhere from 3 to 5 years to get a diagnosis. You won't pay for it, but it also means that surgery for things which something like cancer, you would get your surgery, it's not a problem. But for something like weight loss help or cosmetic surgery, you might not get that. So I, at the start of, and this is me being very open and honest, at the start of the pandemic, well, just before that, a few months before, I started undergoing appointments for the fact that not only could I not lose weight, but I was gaining weight and it didn't add up. So I wasn't, the calories that I was consuming didn't reflect the weight gain. None of it added up. And so they did some tests and they said, you've got hormone imbalance and this, but it's going to take you another 6 months before we can move you down the conveyor belt to the next thing. It may even be a year. And I just thought, oh, I can't wait that long. And then COVID happened. So then they said it could now be years. And I just thought, I can't wait this long. And so I had a conversation with my auntie, and we did a lot of reading together. And she said to me, have you looked at bariatric surgery? And I said, no, I haven't, because it seems quite drastic. And I'd kind of thought about it, but I thought, it seems like a lot. And what I discovered was that at the base, so if you think about your stomach like a bag, right, at the base of your stomach here, there's the hormone, it's like a hormone receptor or something. I'm not entirely, I don't do science, so I'm not a scientist, I'm not a doctor, but essentially, in layman's terms, by going through this sleeving process, so I went for the gastric sleeve, it removed one of the ingredients that essentially made up this toxic mess that was messing up all my hormones. And I read lots of things online from other women that had suffered from the same health concerns, and they'd said, not only have I found that it's helped, but also through losing weight, it's helped other things. And I thought, I don't have, a lot of people have said to me, oh, it must be great to be healthy now. But the thing is I didn't have any pre-existing health conditions. I didn't have diabetes, I didn't have angina, high blood pressure, none of that, which meant that I was a really good candidate for the surgery, because I went into that surgery with no additional risks. And over here, a lot of people will cut corners, and I understand why they do it, because it costs me £10,500 to have the surgery, so we paid to go private. Some people go to places like Turkey in Europe, which is a little bit sketchy because they don't have the same level of aftercare, or in my opinion, I don't think it's as safe, and statistically it's not as safe either. And I thought it's worth spending an extra £3,000 or £4,000 to get it done in England. And also I'm not having to get a flight home afterwards, which of course we all know flights put a toll on your body, and a flight back from Turkey is not going to be amazing when you've just had your body chopped open.
Right.
And so I read a lot of bad stories, I read a lot of good stories. I had people tell me that it was the cheats way out and all the rest of it. And I just thought, you know what? There's only one person I have to look at every day, and that's me. And I'm only answerable really to myself, and I don't have children or anything like that. So being quite morbid, if I die, I don't have any dependents that I have to worry about, so I'm okay. This is my decision that I'm making for me. It's purely selfish decision. It's my body. I can do what I want with it. It was terrifying because you don't know what you're going into really. But actually, for anybody watching this, the one thing I would say is I got given some great advice, and the advice was get yourself a water bottle, because you need to start drinking as soon as you've had the surgery. And number 2 is get up and start moving, because you're at risk of blood clots. So straight away I got up, and it was like, you know, when you watch someone who's over 100 years old and they're walking, and their walking is so labored, that's what my walking was like. It was horrendous. But it's keyhole surgery, and I would say to anybody who is watching this and they've got it on their mind, just go and get it done, because it's opened my life up enormously. I feel like my life has gone, it's such a dramatic change. It's like going from night to day. It's like somebody's turned the light on in a dark room. It's just been fantastic.
Glad to hear that.
Yeah, and again, I bring up the fact that how we saw your frustrations early on, and then as the days went on and the months went on and your situation got better, and then just your mood lightened, and you were doing really, really well.
Absolutely.
You were doing really,
Thank
really
you.
well. So
it is, you know, a lot of people do say it's the easy way out, and I can assure you it's certainly not. I still have challenges. There are still things that I have to sort out. That, you know, I'm on injections the rest of my life. I'm on B12 injections. I have to take bariatric vitamins the rest of my life. However, I have removed that risk of type 2 diabetes in terms of being overweight. I know that you can get type 2 through other methods, but the idea is that I've lessened that risk as much as I can. I have probably future-proofed my health in a way that I just couldn't have done any other way. And, you know, when I saw that doctor, and the doctor said to me, you are now at a point with your health that you will probably not lose the weight naturally, I just thought, I've got no real other choice. I don't want to just exist in my life. We don't get very long on earth. So you've got to try and do as much as you can and have as much fun as you can in the time permitted to you. And you don't always get many healthy years. You know, you see a lot of people where they get to their mid-50s, early 60s, sometimes even younger, and they're poorly, and their enjoyment in life is dramatically reduced by what they're able to do. So I thought it's my responsibility as well to be as healthy as I can, and also the National Health Service is under a lot of strain, so if I can do something to lessen that strain, well, I should do it, definitely.
2 keys to a great life, Bob: have your health and classic cars. Hear, hear.
Absolutely.
Hear, hear, ladies and gentlemen. Hear, hear.
Here, here, and everywhere else.
That's right. Very good. All right. One last thought, and that, of course, what other cars are coming up on your show here that we need to keep an eye out for?
Oh, well, one might interest you because you may never have driven it before. I've got my friend James's 2CV coming up. I've got a Triumph Stag. You'll know what that is.
Yes.
Wow.
That's going to be great.
Well, hold on. I'm at the edge of my chair right now. There you go. I'm officially at the edge of my chair. No, I almost did, but yeah. Thanks, Bob, for that one. I don't want to hurt myself and all that. Well, very cool.
Steph, how do people find you? How do they find your show?
Just go on Google. It's all the SEO is up to scratch. So just go on to Google, all one word, search iDriver Classic.
Yeah, she's all over Instagram. She's all over YouTube. She's everywhere, and you guys check them out. And again, if you're in the States, it's interesting to look at the cars she drives because we don't see a lot of them out here, and they're a lot of fun to look up close. And you get to see more Vauxhalls like this.
Yeah.
So,
and also some weird stuff as well. You've got the PLP 50. You've got all the different bits and pieces. So there's I tried to do a lot of cars that you may not see otherwise. So hopefully you'll see some bits that you've not seen and get excited about cars again.
Very good, very good. Hey, don't forget to follow us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram as well. So until next week, that's Steph in Britain. That's Bob in California. See, we just cover all the countries. I'm Randy at our Two Tired Guys studios here in Washington State, having fun, talking about cars. New episodes drop every Wednesday on the PowerTubeTV.com spot, and Roku and Amazon Fire and all those other places. You know it. You'll find it. And don't forget. So we'll see you next time, everybody.